The flag of the United
States
States
of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
under the Texas flag,
pledge allegiance to thee, Texas,
under God,
one and indivisible.
You'd bow your head for a moment of silence. Today we've lost several people from mission to COVID, so let's pray for those families that are dealing with that today. Thank you. You may be seated. I'd like to add that Ms. Veronica Mendoza has joined us.
Ms. Gallardo, comments from the public? Okay, comments on specific agenda items? Moving on to the superintendent's update and recognition. And today we do have several recognitions. As a matter of fact, we'd like to celebrate our attendance incentives for the second and third 6 weeks. For the second 6 weeks, we have Mission High School that has earned the $4,000. Veterans Memorial High School, $4,000, and Mission Collegiate, $4,000. So our 4 high schools have met the benchmark for attendance. Then for Mission Junior High, we have $1,000 for Mission Junior High. We have Alton Memorial Junior High for $4,000. And then Bryan Elementary, $1,000. Castro Elementary, $1,000. Mims Elementary, $1,000. O'Grady, $1,000. Waits Elementary, $4,000. Cavazos Elementary, $2,000. And the grand total for incentives is $27,000. Now, very good. Now, the difference between last year and this year was 0.60%. And of course, with remote instruction, we've had a lot of other challenges. However, our staff has done a tremendous job in making sure that our children are logging into remote instruction. Then for the third 6 weeks, we would also like to recognize the high schools. Mission High School, $4,000. Veterans Memorial High School, $4,000. And Mission Collegiate, $4,000. Our 3 high schools have met the benchmark. Now for the junior highs, we have Alton Memorial Junior High School with $4,000. Then for the elementaries, we have Waits Elementary meeting $2,000. And one of the things is that for the high schools especially, and the junior highs for secondary, we do have a platform with Munis, our school system. And what the program does is it's able to check for attendance throughout the courses throughout the day. Now for elementary, it's a little bit different because we want to capture attendance. When students log in, they have to answer a question. Also throughout the day, if the students are submitting assignments or working on the Google Classroom, even if it's until up in the evening, that is captured. Also, any intervention program that the children are utilizing, that will give them credit, whether it's Imagine Math, the Smarty Ants, or Achieve 3000. So our IT department is working to make sure that we go back and find children that might have fallen through the cracks, because it's very difficult to be checking all those platforms, because those platforms really do not communicate with our main system, which is the Munis. So our IT directors are running reports so that we can go back and verify attendance that can possibly be recovered. So that is the next step that we're working on. However, within the last week, within the last 2 weeks, we've had a lot of the elementary campuses that have been meeting the attendance benchmark. So we are very confident that for the 4-6 weeks, you're going to see a huge improvement. But at the same time, we're going to go back and recover as we find that the kids did participate. So we're going to be cleaning some of those records. We also have another accolade, our child nutrition program. The meals have been increasing for the last couple of weeks. And we have our child nutrition program doing all kinds of campaigns to get the word out. In the same manner, our campus administration are doing the same thing, also our PR department. And within the last couple of weeks, we've seen an increase of 1,218 more meals distributed on those Saturdays. So we've seen a jump from 76,552 meals to 77,770 meals. So our children are receiving 7 breakfasts and 7 lunches. Our families report that it is very easy for them to be able to feed the children, or the children feed themselves by simply having the cereal or the muffin and the milk, at the same time being able to heat up a meal for lunch and then easily transition into the classes. So that's been a real assistance to our families, and also meeting the basic needs of our children so that they will be able to learn. Also wanted to share that Hidalgo County at the beginning of the year also made a resolution to basically give a pat on the back of our child nutrition programs in Hidalgo County. And this is the resolution that was provided to our staff. And we just want to read that resolution. And it's a resolution honoring essential employees that participated in the summer food service program. However, that summer school program has continued throughout the school year. And the proclamation reads, whereas in Texas, more than 1 in 5 children struggle with hunger. And because of school closures for COVID-19, Texas received approval from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to provide more than $1 billion in pandemic food benefits to families with children that have temporarily lost access to free or reduced price school meals. And during the spring, with the onset of COVID-19 pandemic, school districts and institutions of higher ed throughout Hidalgo County and across the world adjusted to a new way of teaching and learning. And whereas since March, in conjunction with the USDA, participating school districts and their employees took action to ensure children were fed. And whereas the U.S. Department of Agriculture funds the summer meals program, including the summer food service program and the seamless summer option. In addition, the Texas Department of Agriculture, or TDA, administers the summer meals program in Texas. And whereas the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture recently announced the extension of 3 additional nationwide waivers, giving child nutrition program operators the flexibility they need to continue leveraging innovative solutions in support of social distancing, such as delivery and grab and go. And grab and go is what's happening during our Saturdays. Throughout the remaining of the summer months, until school is back in session, and as you know, the program has continued. Whereas with that came the challenge of providing for the nutritional needs of students. Many public and private schools demonstrated innovative ways to continue to provide free breakfast, snacks, lunch to support the needs of students and families during this time. And whereas from March to July 2020, Region 1, which encompasses Hidalgo County, said a total of 19 districts participated in providing more than 9 million meals based on the number of campuses participating across the Rio Grande Valley. When private schools are considered, there is confidence that Hidalgo County schools served a grand total of more than 10 million meals to hungry students during this period. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Hidalgo County Commissioners Court is honored to recognize the hard work of the essential staff within schools, both public and private, that participated in the distribution of meals for kids. Hidalgo County thanks you for your consideration, innovation, and time in assisting all schools in order to keep children and families fed during this COVID-19 crisis. And our school district continued with those applications, and every Saturday, we are providing the over 70, almost 80,000 meals to our students. And the nice thing is that, you know, our child nutrition program staff are out here on Saturdays, and they do their work with heart, and they always spice it up. You will see them dressing up for the holidays, and it just brings a smile to our children and our families. And they go above and beyond, making sure that they bring out the meals to the cars, opening doors, you know, things like that. They go the extra mile. And they themselves are the fans and the cheerleaders. Everywhere they go, they tell people about the work that they do, and they should come and pick up the meals. So they do a lot of PR because they believe in the work that they do. Even though, you know, we have a PR department and they promote it, but when the staff themselves are out there, you know, pumping gas at the grocery store, and they themselves are recruiting, I mean, what else can we ask? So today, we want to thank the child nutrition staff, from the director to every single staff, and Ms. Reese as well, and Ms. Garcia, for continuing to support them. And Ms. Woodrum is always very excited about bringing in new recipes, and she gets very, very excited about what's happening in the program. And as you saw last week, we presented about the purchasing of those freezers, and that will help us to open another site, which will be Salinas Elementary, that is very much needed in that area. So we'd like to congratulate our CMP staff because they do everything with heart. Another thing that I wanted to talk to you all about, which we haven't had the opportunity, is that our school district leadership team received an invitation to apply for the Holsworth Center. And the Holsworth Center is sponsored by Charles Butt with HEB. And he calls it the Holsworth Center because his mother was a public school teacher and her maiden name was Holsworth. So he had set up this Leadership Institute to honor her. And he pumps millions of dollars because he wholeheartedly believes and champions public education. And he believes that the only way that we can get the job done with public schools is if we spend lots of money in preparing the next generation of administrators, teachers, and central office staff. So for the last 15 years, they have been selecting a cohort of 6 school districts, and they're on their 3rd round. And early in the year, we received an invitation to apply for this professional development cohort, which is a 5-year commitment. And what they do is they work with a central office leadership, especially the curriculum and instruction and HR, for 2 years. After that, they work with a campus leadership team, and they want to work with districts that are good and are hungry to become greater. And we did receive the invitation. We did submit an application. And today we had the site visit, and they're doing the site visits virtually. Normally they would come just the way they conducted with HEB for the school board. And we believe that probably because our school board was named the Texas HEB Excellent awardees for last year, that's probably why we received the invitation. Even though they're different entities, they are still sponsored by Mr. Butt. The same thing with Raise Your Hand Texas. They've done a lot with early college high schools. So today we had our interview, which was about 4 hours, and they started with the interview with the board president for about 30 minutes. Then they interviewed me for 30 minutes. Then they interviewed the team, and they asked for 6, primarily 5 from curriculum and instruction from the leadership team, and 1 representing the HR services, which is Ms. Garcia. And so they presented us with some scenarios and how to solve those scenarios, but we had to have conversations amongst us, which was Dr. Roberts, the executive directors, Ms. Rissica, Mr. Flores, Ms. Wilson, Francis Cruz, Ms. Garcia, and myself. Then also a focus group of 4 principals, which was the 2 high school principals, the Ralph Cantu principal, and the Bryan Elementary principal. And they had a focus group. After that, they were going to wrap it with me for 30 minutes. They were late from 8 to 10 minutes with me. And they told me it was because the conversation with the principals were so interesting, they couldn't let go of that conversation, which, I was like a proud mama, not hearing that. So, but the intent is to build that pipeline of leadership. And they're looking at starting with, there was 21 finalists out of 48 applications. They did not expect so many applications. They said they usually get about 20. This time around, they got 48 even through the pandemic. So what does that tell you? That people are asking for help. So by the end of April, mid to end of April, they will select only 6. And this is the 3rd cohort that they've done. They also look at strategically school districts from around the state and 1 from different regions. And if selected, then we would start with our central office and embark within a 2-year journey in studying high-performing organizations in the U.S. and abroad. And then the 2nd year, they will be working with principals, supervisors, assistant principals for 2 years. And that after that, it will be rolled up where then we're working all together again to hopefully develop a strategic plan for the district. And they will cover all of the cost of the professional development and get the best of the best from the Ivy school universities, those researchers on best practices. And what they say, the criteria that they were looking for was, first, they look at districts that are hungry to improve and see developing leaders as critical priority. They seek district leaders who are open to new ideas and are eager to make major improvements to their current practices. Second, they look for districts that are ready to do the work. that like to see alignment of the vision and shared commitment at every level of leadership. That's why the interviews are with every level. Representative from the board president, the superintendent, the leadership, and the campus administration. And then finally, they look for districts that have demonstrated an ability to lead change. And they look for evidence that the district has moved the needle on its key priorities and goals. So we're very excited with what we saw, and we're keeping our fingers crossed, and we got a very good feeling. Of course, you know, we signed up because we always want to be the first ones to be interviewed, because we want to set that standard high. So we'll keep you posted. And one of the things that they complimented us and they talked about was the fact that they said that it was very evident. I wrote it down. They said that it was very evident that our commitment was not only to our students, our teachers, but to the community as a whole. They also believed that they saw mutual respect and credibility within the team. And so with the feedback, they also stated that we were very comfortable with because they gave us activities that we needed to work as teams, that we were very comfortable working collaboratively. So I'm very, very pleased with the feedback that they gave us, and we can only expect to be part of one of those 6 school districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Presentation to the board, Landry statement.
Good evening, and thank you, President Rogers, members of the board, superintendent, members of the audience. At last week's special board of trustees meeting, we had a presentation by Mr. Rick Hinojosa, structural engineering, on his comprehensive report on the Tom Landry Stadium. His report was mainly focusing on the issue of the piers. Tonight's, this evening's report, he will give us options on how to conduct those repairs. He will present a scope of work, a timeline, how it's going to be phased in, how he's going to meet all the plans and specs and ensure that any repair work meets all code compliance and safety compliance. Also, knowing that our goal is to have graduation this May. He was given a set of questions which he has answered, and they are before you. And feel free to ask any questions that you have of him. And I bring forward Mr. Rick Hinojosa.
Good evening, board members, superintendent. I guess last week, one of the concerns was the piers that aren't in compliance, and I wanted to know if these piers be repaired by the mid-May. And I did visit with some contractors, showed them what we're trying to do, and basically they said that would be impossible to fix 100 and something or 100 piers in that sort of period. So what we did, we came up with a temporary repair. I showed a little detail that I gave you, and this repair basically is going to take care of the uplift forces, which the reinforcing that was not provided by the contractor, which was shown in the x-rays that were presented to us. This temporary repair, what it'll do, it'll basically attach the pier to the column, and that would allow the structure to be safe from uplift loads. So that could be done before mid-May, that repair, which would allow you to use the stadium. Of course, it's going to cost some money, and it's just a temporary repair because the plans still need to be in compliance with the contract documents. In order to do that, have to, repair the piers as the existing design team designed them. So what we're thinking is that while, if y'all decide to do this temporary repair, while this is being constructed on the home side, we could, at the time, we could go out for bids, we could advertise and go out for bids on the rest of the stuff or fixing the piers the way they should be done. And this could be done, they could start on the visitor side to do all of the work that needs to be done while this temporary work is being done. And as soon as graduation, that time period is over, then they can move over to the home side and finish all of those repairs. So some of the items that we're looking at, of course, like the first question that was, as per the report, that did meet the planning specification, not built as per code. The recommendation is not to use not to use until repairs have been made. What are the options? Okay, option one, of course, is to replace the piers as construction documents. Option number two is this temporary fix that I'm talking about on the 102 piers. And like I said, that can be done before the mid-May graduation. Okay, what is the scope of work using the stadium bleachers, piers? The most critical other items mentioned are not critical. Safety can be phased, and please include phasing your presentation. Okay, if what they're going to have to do on option one, of course, they're going to have to shore the bleachers while they're working on the piers. They're going to have to remove the flat work around the piers, which would have to be removed and repaired. They're going to have to they're going to have to remove the concrete on the piers from the top all the way to the construction joint so they can replace the reinforcing that's not there. They're not going to provide all the reinforcing. They're going to leave the reinforcing that's there and then just tie in the spiral around the reinforcing that comes up from the pier and connect it to the anchor bolts from the beam and then pour the concrete back. So that they'd have to do that to all of the piers that are damaged, that were not constructed properly. Okay, and then on option two, the columns on the top of the piers could be temporarily anchored to the pier for uplift concerns, but still need to be repaired to meet construction documents code. This temporary repair will address the safety concerns regarding the uplift imposed on the top of the piers. And what I mean by uplift is there's two types of loads that are applied from the stadium down to the pier. There are gravity loads, that's the loads from the actual stadium and the people that are in the stands. And that's normally taken care of by concrete. And we did revisit, we went by this week and looked at all the piers, and they seem to be in pretty good shape since the last time we visited them. There hasn't been any additional cracking and stuff, so that's not a concern for us. But with the lack of this spiral reinforcing, that's where the uplift loads, and what I mean by uplift loads are wind loads. Like, for instance, you're walking around with an umbrella and wind just catches you and tries to pick up the umbrella. That's what happens with uplift loads. And with this temporary repair, we can take care of those uplift loads. And that's an issue I know that we all have in engineering. Okay, the question was depending on the number 4, the options for pier repair. Will this work damage the flat work, and will this be an issue? The repair to bring the concrete pier to meet the construction documents and codes will have an impact on flat work immediately adjacent to it. The temporary repair will affect flat work immediately adjacent to 35 piers only. These piers are accessible to the public. And what we mean by that all the piers are not, depending on where they're located, some are come up out of the ground, out of the flat work higher than others. Some of them are low. So in order to meet that construction joint, they're going to have to saw cut around the pier, the flat work, take that out, and then repair the pier to a certain distance. Okay, each option needs to meet code requirements. To bring the piers into true compliant and construction document requirements, of course, we need to do option one, which is to repair the pier. Number 6, since you will be working on the piers, will the column pier directly in front of the 2 concession stand windows be addressed at the time? What happened with that is in front of the concession stands, construction documents show X-bracing right in 2 locations on both construction stands. For some reason, well, we know why they were taken out because they were right in front of the windows and the doors of the concession stands. But they were placed in there because you can see where they were welded onto the columns. So at some time, which we don't know, they were removed. So did they compensate X-bracings at some other place? We don't know because that hasn't been looked at. That was designed by the original engineers. So that needs to be looked at. And then, of course, the columns that are in front that y'all had mentioned that you wanted to relocate, well, that's also part of the structure. So if you remove that column in front of the doors, then that load that comes down from the structure has to be moved around somewhere. So that needs to be engineered. That is something that, of course, we were hired to review the plans and make sure that the construction was done according to the plans. We haven't done any type of engineering design on this stadium. Okay, the next question, number 7, what are you proposing to fix? The following items are being addressed by our firm at this time. The home side flat work around the buildings, the home side bleacher structure foundation piers, the home side bleacher structure galvanized steel braces, beams that are damaged, the home side bleacher structure, the cardinal seats and aluminum benches, the home side bleacher structure walking platform, the visitor site flat work around the buildings, the visitor side bleacher structure foundation piers, the visitor side bleacher structure galvanized steel braces, columns, beams that are damaged, visitor side bleacher structure aluminum benches, visitor side bleacher structure walking platform. Above the ticket booths or close to the elevators, there has been some the birds roosting and dropping near it. So what our architect that we had, he designed a screen that's going to be placed there to try to eliminate some of that and catch some of that. Provide railing at the cross bracing to meet the ADA. Provide minimum clear knee space below sink in the concession stands as per ADA. Provide repair for openings and provide door replacements. Item number 8, will you be addressing the seats at the same time of the pier? The seats will need to be addressed at the steel structure and the steel structure are addressed. Since the pier repairs and steel structure repair will be create movement on walking platform and aluminum benches, it's best for the seats, benches to be addressed afterwards. If the only fix that would, just in mind, if the only fix that would address the safety issue in the piers is to replace them, we need to know to bring the piers into compliant performance that we said, the construction document requirements options need to be selected. And I think all the other ones are pretty much have been addressed, but at this time, that's what our thinking is. I mean, we're thinking that this temporary repair will take care of the windstorm items that need to be addressed. And I don't know how long do you think it would take to advertise, and if we were to do the whole thing, like 3 weeks?
Well, if you have the plans and specs here, and they'll be ready by February 26th, then we will go out for a competitive seal proposal. We'll follow the process. And then if we need special board of trustees meeting, we'll have those. That way we can expedite the GC contracts.
Right. And then as per the temporary repair, I don't think we wouldn't have time to go out for bids. Can you do quotes, or how would you handle that to get somebody on board right away? Because they could start on that anytime.
What's the estimated cost for that, the temporary repair?
Well, I mean, the number that we were given was like $650 a pier, and there's like 102, so it's a little over $60,000.
It says, it says 750 here for steel.
I mean, 750, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 76,500.
It's over 50,000, so we would have to competitively procure it. I mean, we could also go through an interlocal that would fast track it.
Good question. Could y'all do this in-house? Rick, do y'all have the capability of doing that? All it is just an angle that's bolted on to the pier, and it comes back up, and it's welded to the column.
That would be something that, I mean, the whole issue here is liability and safety.
Yeah.
And our staff are general maintenance workers,
Right.
and we would have to discuss that.
Yeah, definitely.
Something I thought about.
If we were to do this project, how long would it take?
They say they can do between, well, the contractor I talked to, has experience in this, told me it can be done they can do about like 5 a day or something like that. So they can do it well under a month.
No, we don't have any other big.
Mr. Hinojosa, can you?
Yes.
I have a few questions. I know you mentioned about, the bleachers, like there's not any more damage. Well, they haven't been used for quite a while. And then you mentioned about the uplift loads. Now, this is like the floor that's under the bleachers itself, right? Right under.
Mhm.
Isn't that, was that checked out what's under that or above that? That's not visual?
Well, the only thing that was checked out was the portion that's basically above the flat work. That's what that GPR scanning did. It's basically an X-ray. So that showed what reinforcing was inside the pier, and we compared it to what was actually in the construction documents. And that's what was noted, that the spiral, the upper portion of the pier has 4 spirals. Some of them had the spirals, some had 2, some had 3, some didn't have any, some had 1. They varied. So those spirals are what control the uplift, have a lot to do with the uplift forces, and those need to be replaced. But as per below the flat work, I mean, we're assuming that it's okay. I mean, I don't see how else we could.
Well, it's just that, it's always windy here regardless, and there needs to be a way of any, whatever drops or trash or whatever. I mean, I've never seen a stadium that had a floor like that right under the bleachers other than a concrete, that was, made out of concrete. So, I mean, but is that the norm now or?
Well, but I mean, that's basically just like a big sidewalk. That has nothing to do with the structure, the flat work. All the loads are coming down to the pier. Remember, the pier goes down about 20 feet below from where the column is anchored to the pier. It continues down 20 feet.
Right.
Quite a few of those, but.
And you also mentioned about the galvanized steel braces. I know in your report from last week, you mentioned that they were all galvanized coated, and that's a big difference, isn't it?
Well, they should have been galvanized coated, but there is some corrosion, and so that needs to be repaired by repainting whatever areas are corroded, fixing them up and repainting them with galvanized. They should have been galvanized. As per the construction documents, they were galvanized.
Mr. Hinojosa, more or less, how much will it take? How long will it take for total construction from the day they begin to fixing it up temporarily to fixing it permanent? What's the time frame that we're looking at?
We're hoping they could do it in about 4 or 5 months. That's what we're shooting. But like I said, one of the things that when we meet with a contractor, we're gonna look for the most qualified, of course, when we get the bids in. But not only is the price gonna be important, but the timeline. We're gonna let them know that not just because I assume that's what y'all want to do. That your price is the lowest, but maybe this guy's a little bit higher, but he can do it in a month and a half, shorter period of time. So I think that's a very important thing to look into.
And based on your experience, more or less, I'm sure that when you had that friend that's a contractor, what costs are we looking at, more or less, just so that the board can have an estimate?
We came up with our engineering estimate basically to do the whole thing with the repairs that we've noted. And we're looking at right now about 975,000 to do everything.
Wow. But that's a complete fix.
That's a complete fix, yes.
Okay. I have a question here. Okay, that would be 970, but that would be a complete fix.
Higher or lower, we don't know.
Okay, yeah, it would, yeah. But, so it's 750 for pier right now. So how much was the estimate for the work right now?
I believe it was 74.
74,000. Okay, so we're gonna put 74,000, but when they come back, everything, all these 74,000, are they gonna start again, or is it going to go, I mean, none of what was done is going to go towards starting again? It has to be started again.
It's a temporary.
So it's a temporary fix just for that, for graduation. I think the board needs to discuss this.
Yeah, that's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
We have the graduation somewhere else, maybe baseball field, something, I don't know.
No,
Is that something that we have to discuss
not baseball.
with legal or an executive?
The small,
I think
the bleachers.
I think we should take it executive and we need to discussion. So that's my feeling. I don't know about the rest.
Yes, we do need to discuss it, but, we're looking at adding another $1 million, so to speak, to a stadium with the final cost of that stadium and where it was just bleachers, not even the turf track. It was just bleachers, that we paid. I don't know the final figure, Mr. Rivera, but we paid an absorbent amount, and then to add another $1 million to fix.
Well, and the piers, major problem too is the piers.
All the fixes.
I think we need to discuss it.
How much do we have in reserve on that?
300.
Between $300 and $400, 400,000.
The cost was, 7,605,000.
8 minutes.
Okay, well,
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hinojosa.
Thank you, Mr. Nojo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hinojosa.
Thank you.
I guess we can talk about this with legal.
Yes.
Yes.
Discussion and approval of the 2021-22 academic school counselor. Ms. Risa.
School calendar.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, superintendent. Last week, we did present some information. We were in the process of finalizing the academic calendar voting. At the background information, the District-wide Educational Improvement Council, otherwise known as the DEIC, Calendar Committee, was tasked with creating 3 calendars for the 21-22 school year. In accordance with Texas Education Code 25.081, for each school year, each school district must operate at least 75,600 minutes of instruction, which includes intermissions and recess. As a district of innovation, the district is permitted to begin school prior to the 4th Monday of August. All Mission CISD employees had the opportunity to vote on Calendar A, Calendar B, or Calendar C. Voting was open from Wednesday, February 3rd to Tuesday, February 9th at 5 p.m. Votes were cast electronically by employees and results were tabulated by department and campus. Results were submitted to the Office of Special Programs and School Improvement. The total number of employees casting votes was 1,862, with 697 or 37.43% voting for Calendar A, 754 employees or 40.49% voting for Calendar B, and 411 or 22.07% voting for Calendar C. Employees cast votes electronically and results were tabulated by the different departments and campuses. The calendar option with the most votes is being submitted for approval tonight, which is calendar option B. I have left, each one of you have an orange folder. And inside that folder, I included the proposed calendar for 122, along with copies of each of the calendars, calendar A, calendar B, a calendar comparison, which compares the differences between the three calendars, as well as the tally of votes by campus and department. And those are for your review. And tonight, we are asking the board for your approval for the proposed 21-22 academic school calendar, which was option B. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So a motion by Ms. Veronica Mendoza, seconded by Roy Vela. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next item, consideration and possible action regarding Tom Landry Stadium repairs. Mr. Rivera?
Yes, as we just heard Mr. Hinojosa's report. He's stated what needs to be done. He stated, he's given us the two options, which I believe that you will be taking to executive to discuss. In the same agenda, procurement process, whichever option we go, will be a competitive seal proposal of which the board adopted as the method of delivery. The board will also need to approve the Hidalgo County prevailing wage rate, of which is an exhibit and attached. The board will also need to adopt the selection criteria of which proposals are evaluated and ranked. Administration would also recommend that the board authorize the superintendent to rank the proposals and to negotiate an agreement with the highest ranked contractor, that is to expedite the process. So the recommendation will be, administration recommends consideration and possible action regarding the Tom Landry Stadium repairs to include the wage rate, selection criteria, and authorization to Dr. Perez as mentioned under the administrative considerations.
Do I hear a motion?
Mr. President, I move that we hold this, to executive session to discuss in executive session.
I agree.
We'll move to executive session. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Garcia?
Item number 3 is recommendation and approval of the selection for Mission High School Assistant Principal, and we're recommending that item be discussed in executive session. Item number 4, recommendation and approval of contracts and employment agreements for campus principals and central office administrators. We are also recommending that be discussed in executive session. Item number 5 is consideration and possible action regarding the sale of real property. And we have discussed this in the last few board meetings and workshops. And legal counsel has prepared a resolution for the authorizing the sale of real property, more specifically located in block 5 and 6 of block 258 Mission Town Site, block 259 Mission Town Site, which is located at 1101 Dunlap Avenue. This is a surplus property that the district has available, and we are recommending that the board consider adopting the resolution authorizing such sale. We have been working with legal counsel to provide the resolution as well as the procurement, the documents to be utilized by our purchasing department to advertise for the sale.
I will now read the resolution.
Excuse me, if I can add something,
Yes.
Madam President. This is the facility that we have been utilizing to store textbooks. And it kind of looks like an old church. We believe that at one time it was being used as a daycare center. And now that we're transferring all of our textbooks into the annex, we no longer need this particular property, and we'd like to put it back on the tax roll.
Okay. On February the 10th, 2021, Mission CISD would like to sell Block 5 and 6, Block 258, Mission Town Site, Block 259, Mission Town Site, locally known as 1101 Dunlap Avenue, Mission, Texas 78572. Whereas the Board of Trustees of Mission Consolidated ISD determined that property is no longer necessary for the operation of the school district, and desires to sell property. And whereas the Board of Trustees of Mission Consolidated ISD authorized to sell the surface estate of the property under section 11.154A of the Texas Education Code, which provides that the Board of Trustees of an independent school district may by resolution authorize the sale of any property held in trust for public school purposes. And whereas the sale of the property is in the best interest of Mission Consolidated ISD, and whereas Board of Trustees of Mission Consolidated ISD is making this resolution for the purpose of authorizing the sale of the surface estate of the property. Now therefore be it resolved that Mission Consolidated ISD authorize the superintendent in accordance with section 11.1542 of the Texas Education Code to notify prior to advertising the sale of the property, all charter schools wholly or partially within the district boundaries, that the district plans to sell the property and allowing each charter school to make an offer to purchase the property under the terms outlined by the board. And be it further resolved that Mission Consolidated ISD authorize the sale of the property in accordance with sections 11.154A of the Texas Education Code and directs the superintendent to take all necessary steps to advertise the sale of the property in accordance with section 272001 of the Texas Local Government Code. And be it further resolved that Mission Consolidated ISD authorizes the superintendent to negotiate a contract for the sale of the property with the winning bidder, subject to board approval of the final terms of the contract. And be it further resolved that the undersigned president of the Board of Trustees of Mission Consolidated ISD is authorized and directed to execute any and all instruments appropriate or necessary to effectuate the sale of the property. Approved by Mission Consolidated ISD Board of Trustees at a meeting held on the 10th day of February 2021 in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act and containing a posted agenda item for deliberation regarding sale of real estate by a vote of blank to blank. At this time, do I have any questions? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to move.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Mr. Juan Gonzalez, seconded by Rivera.
Jerry Zamora.
Jerry
Jerry
Jerry Zamora, sorry. All those in favor say aye.
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 That majority, Cyrus? Yes, okay. So we have a vote of 7.
Next items to consider, the board will consider and may act on the following items. Under consent agenda, any trustee may request the removal of an item from the consent agenda for individual consideration and action.
Mr. President, I move that we accept agenda item 1A through J, if no one has questions.
Good. What numbers did you have?
It's through,
1 through J, 1A through J.
it's through 15.
It's all of them?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a way to,
I wasn't too sure. So then let me.
Okay.
Move that we accept agendas items 1A through 15.
yes.
If there's no questions.
I need a motion on that. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Ms. Betty Mendoza has a motion. Do I have a second?
Second that.
Second by Mr. Juan Gonzalez. All those in favor say aye.
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 7-0.
And
Have now,
then we have executive session, and before we go on to executive session, we do have some Board of Trustees information items.
Madam President, members of the board, Madam Superintendent, these items were discussed at last week's board workshop. And unless the board would like me to go over them, or a specific one, I'll be more than happy to. Anybody have any concerns?
I believe not.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next item is important dates to remember. March 2021, Board of Trustees Workshop, which were formerly known as committee meetings, begin at 6:30. On March 10th, we will have the regular Board of Trustees meeting at 7 p.m. March 15th through the 19th will be spring break. All campuses, departments, and administration building offices will be closed.
We also, may I say,
Yes, the workshop.
on February 5th, we have scheduled a training with Mr. Shan.
What day was that?
The 25th of February. Thursday. It's 6:30. Training on the SB / House Bill 3.
And that's all of us.
That's all of you.
6:30 p.m.
6 years of the regular.
Yes.
Feel for that, you think you have it.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, thank you. We're now moving into executive session for private consultation with board attorney, Texas Government Code 551.071, deliberation regarding real property. Closed meeting, a government body may conduct a closed meeting to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if deliberation is an open meeting and would have a detrimental effect on the position of governmental body in negotiations with a third person, Texas Governor Code 551.072. Deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, or to hear a complaint or a charge against an officer or employee. Texas Government Code 551.071. It is now 7:58. We will go into executive session.
Get it closer to you.
The closed meeting ended at 9:08. We are now back in open meeting, and it is 9:09. Have any business to come before the meeting?
Yes, Mr. Rivera?
Yes, administration recommends consideration and possible action regarding permanent and emergency repairs for Tom Landry Stadium to include the wage rate, selection criteria, and authorization to Dr. Perez as mentioned under administrative considerations.
I so move. I second.
Okay, who made the motion?
Jerry, sorry.
Jerry
Zamora.
Zamora has made a motion, been seconded by
Juan Gonzalez.
Juan Gonzalez. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item, recommendation and approval for Mission High School Assistant Principal. The administration recommends that the Board of Trustees approve Mr. Jesus Cantu as the Mission High School Assistant Principal.
Have a motion?
Motion. I second.
Petra Ramirez has made the motion. It's been seconded by
Jerry Zamora.
Jerry Zamora. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Item number 4, recommendation and approval of contracts and employment agreements for campus principal and central office administrators. The administration recommends that the Board of Trustees approve the contracts and employment agreements for campus principals and central office administrators as presented in executive session.
I so move.
A motion by Ms. Betty Mendoza,
Second then.
second by
Juan Gonzalez.
Juan Gonzalez. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Do we have any further business? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
I so move.
Juan Gonzalez made the motion and seconded by Ms. Betty Mendoza. This meeting is now adjourned at 9:12. Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Everybody take care. Hope you feel better, Coach.
Thanks, Dave.
Remember,
Stay
it's
warm.
Take care.
cold tomorrow, so be careful.
Okay.
Degrees over there.
And next Tuesday, it's projected to be